welcome, ladies and gentlemen, here to Iowa Speedway as we prepare to run the road course configuration for race number 7 on the season for the TNR DRP Stadium Super Truck Series. Preparing here for our heats as qualifying just finishes up. This is the penultimate race on the season before we crown a champion, and everybody is chasing Josh Edmondson and his teammate Connor Parise, who so far this season have won all 6 of the past races on the schedule. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Anthony McCrory. Anthony, obviously mile-and-a-half track here tonight, but we're running a portion of the infield. What's some of the things we've been seeing here in practice that these drivers are going to have to tackle this track?
Entry into that road course section on the back straightaway is going to be a bit of an issue for some of these guys. Getting down from top speed all the way into the infield, it's kind of like the Daytona entry into turn 1 where you're at top speed and have to figure out how to woe it down. And these trucks do not like slowing down. We'll have to watch the entry on the way, and then just navigating the way out, getting the run out of the infield section on back to the oval is going to be crucial for these guys if they come into a situation where they need to battle back to the line, and it could set up for an entire run throughout the oval 1-2.
No standing starts as the pace car will be leading them around here for their green flags in the heat races, the B main and the upcoming 25 lap A main. Feel sad for that safety car there. You saw he got completely engulfed by the 98 of Tristan Mayer, but Tristan Mayer is going to be the pole sitter. Felix Roy was scheduled to roll off from the pole position, but he's not on the grid, so it'll be Tristan Mayer and Stephen Cagem in the front row, and then Josh Edmondson, Connor Parise, as mentioned, the two drivers that have been the only ones to find victory lane this season. Parise, of course, the defending winner from last week at Belle Isle. They're going to be in row number 2, and now it's kind of looking like Edmondson's got this championship all wrapped up even before we take the green flag here tonight, but we still got about 3 drivers battling for that second spot in the stands. That should be pretty interesting down the home stretch, but here we go. Let's turn them loose and let's get this first heat at Iowa Road Course underway. The Mayor's been close a number of times this season, trying to keep up with Parise and with Edmondson. That just keeps coming up just a little bit short. Maybe today is his day. He did pretty well at the Charlotte Roval a few weeks ago, and I guess we could kind of liken this track to that track in some way, shape, or form.
It's about the track that will be the closest to what we're at right now. This is albeit a very different one. It's all throughout turn 5 into turn 6. They're battling side by side, door to door with Edmondson and Mayer. Edmondson around the outside of the racetrack trying to get it done. We'll get it done into turn 9 going around. That was intensely close, and I've noticed something that we didn't really see during practice because their entry wasn't so tight into the turns, is that they're really struggling to get the cars to turn into that first flat left, which is turn 3. They're kind of breaking it away, which is lifting the back end of the truck up, and as we both know, that is pretty detrimental if you're trying to get grip down onto these trucks.
There's rumble strips here, but they're not like the turtles we see at the Charlotte Roval or like the heavy curbing that drivers have at the track we were at last week, Belle Isle. But I am noticing that these drivers, depending on how sharp they take these corners, either the right or the left side tires coming completely off the ground. And we saw last week when the tires came off the ground a couple of times at Belle Isle, the truck's completely going over. So keep your eye on that there. That left-hander heading back onto the speedway section. You just saw the top 2, the left sides coming off the racing surface.
Relatively flat track as well, especially in the infield section. On the actual oval part of the track, it's standard banking around through the front straightaway and the turns, but once you get down in, very flat, kind of reminiscent of some of the parts on Canadian Tire where it's there's lots of elevation changes at Canadian Tire, but at this track very flat. We'll have to watch them get around this, but I'm noticing something that Connor Parise, teammate to Edmondson, challenging for the lead into turn 4. Interesting move into the chicane, trying to get down into the inside. Couldn't quite get the advantage. Now through 6, tries to set it up for a rundown. And this is something that we talked about in the pre-race where right now Parise is trying to set up his exit out of 9 to see if he can get a run down the front straightaway. If he can get this to happen, he might be able to get right alongside of Edmondson by the time they get into turn 3.
Guess we could kind of call this a roval. It uses the speedway section from the exit of turn 4 all the way over to turn 2. Turns 3 and 4 of the speedway section not used. That's where most of the road course section is. And, it's interesting when you bring up Parisi because, go back to last week at Belle Isle. Edmondson dominating in the points. Looks like he's going to be wrapping this championship up maybe even after tonight, and Connor Parisi realizing that, not going to let his teammate get away that easily. He put the pressure on Edmondson quite a bit in not only the B main but eventually in the A main where he was victorious, and he's kind of picking up right where he left off from last week here tonight, trying to get around that 58, trying to prove, hey, I'm going to be the strong car of the evening, the strong truck of the evening I should say, and try and see if maybe he can finish out the season tied with wins with Edmondson. Right now Parisi with 2, Edmondson with 4.
We're going to try and see if he can set up a run to get a heat win tonight. Setting it up down into turn 1 and 2, the final lap of heat 1. He's got to be able to do it into 3 or potentially do it out of the out of turn 9 down in the front straightaway. He locks it up, almost going into 3. Gets the back end lock. Oh, it looks like Edmondson ran wide. He's going to open the door slightly into the chicane. Who's got the better run out? It might be Maher on the back. He's gotten up close to the 2 leaders, but now uses a nose, tries to get the 958 to bounce off, and he does slightly, but I don't think it's going to matter too much as Edmondson, round the final turn, might be able to hold it out and get to the line to take the first heat, or maybe Parisi's got something to say about it.
How about a drag race for the first heat, and it is going to be Edmondson holding off Connor Parisi, but man, what a finish, and that wasn't even the A main. It's got me pretty excited for the upcoming B main and A main, and what a finish there as Edmondson will take that victory. Second place will be Parisi, and Tristan Maher will finish behind them. He had the best seat in the house for that photo finish in third place. That brings up, I believe this is going to be our second and final heat with Bob Giaquinto, Bill Edwards, the front row, Mike Tellier, and John Cannonzaro, who we saw pick up a big block series victory earlier on tonight, completing that second and final row.
Yeah, coming in strong for John Cannonzaro. See if he can have that momentum filter into our truck event tonight. And Giaquinto, he's had some interesting runs this season. We'll start on the pole for his heat race here in heat 2. So if he can figure out a way to get this car into victory, or I should say truck into victory lane tonight in the first heat, he might be able to set his way out, because I think the last time that we saw him finished outside of the top 5, but he had a pretty stellar run at Belle Isle.
Seen here tonight in practice, and even right there in that heat, lap times around this road course, 50 to 51 seconds per lap, so it doesn't take them long to turn circuits here at the Iowa road course. But that being said, especially when we get to the B main and the A main, how much of a sense of urgency is there going to be for drivers to make a move? Because, as mentioned, there's only 12 laps in the B main, and there's only 25 laps in the A main. I mean, it's going to take them a shorter amount of time to complete the 25 laps here at the Iowa road course than it took them to complete the 15 laps at Belle Isle last week.
Yeah, it's very quick laps around this circuit, so not a lot of time for these guys once we get into the B and A mains to work with if they want to make moves, and especially with how tight the circuit is. We were talking about Belle Isle, how tight it's a street circuit. This one, a lot more room, but physically it just feels so much more claustrophobic than at Belle Isle. We're setting them up for our second heat race, green flag in the air, and it looks like that Cannonzaro wanted to go immediately, tries to move up to the outside line, and his Dodge can't quite do it. Now they're filtering their way in through turn 1, 3 wide, almost 4 wide, with Tellier on the bottom trying to make a move.
Who's going to be the one to back out of this situation as Giaquinto's got them through right behind? Look at Tellier drive it deep there into the corner. He's going to make it stick. Contact between Cannonzaro and Edwards. Edwards going to get muscled out of the way. Cannonzaro goes to second. Now he's going to cross over Tellier. Can he go to the point? Yes, indeed he will. And I got good news for you, John Cannonzaro. This isn't Belle Isle. There's no turn 3. That was his Achilles heel in both the races, the B main and the A main last week.
As he gets out to the lead of the race, he's got Tellier behind him. That's washed out the racetrack to the outside line. That'll open the door for Edwards to the inside. We'll take the second place position as we complete lap 1. 4 laps to go. Tellier now has a comeback into turn 1. I had to get on the brakes a little bit to run in, to stop from running into Bill Edwards now through turn 2. Can they set up the run going into our first of many turns in the infield? I don't know if he'll be able to do it. Bit too far back. He might have a go at it, down to the inside. Tries to swing it into the inside. He had to back out of it, but he'll have to cross over into the chicane.
There's a lot of places here in the infield where there is some runoff to be able to save you if you make a mistake. Right there, though, we saw from the back straightaway heading into that left-hander, there's actually a gravel pit, so that's one heavy braking zone you do not want to make a mistake in, or else it is going to cost you, and cost you dearly. Bill Edwards trying to pull away from Mike Tellier for the second spot. Mentioned the fact that Josh Edmondson coming into this race is running away with this championship, has a total of 51 points back to Tristan Maher, but right now Maher, Connor Parisi, and Bill Edwards, they are all separated by 21 points, so still anything can happen for those drivers up inside of the top 5, and for Bill Edwards, he's only a total of 5 points behind Connor Parisi, so if he can finish second place here in this heat race, they'll at least keep Parisi within striking distance and then try and gain on him for third in points in the A main and the B main.
Right now, speaking on the part of Edwards, losing ground to Canonzaro, but just keeping within eye shot. Very short race here tonight, might not be able to catch up in time. He's actually washing out, and I've noticed that throughout the double apex of 6 and 7, that I guess this would technically make this turn 8, but through 6 and 7, it seems that they're having a hard time dealing with it through there. Is the car or the trucks? Not a lot of downforce on these trucks. They start to wash out a little bit by the time they get through into that turn. So we're seeing a lot of drivers have issues with it, and that might play into the A main and the B main because whoa, Edwards hits the wall on the way out of turn 2. That's another issue that I haven't really considered. But with putting essentially double the field onto the track at the same time, you think that there's going to continue to be those problems, and that might translate into some issues for the battle for the lead if we see that happen.
It's also going to make it interesting too. As mentioned, it's going to be a rolling start. We're so used to seeing the standing starts at the road courses, and tonight the pace car is going to be leading them to green, so everybody's going to be pretty well stacked up. Nobody really going to be able to jump out and get an edge like we see in the standing starts if a driver misses a gear or isn't able to quite get up through the gears into the throttle as soon as other drivers. White flag in the air for John Canonzaro, as he's got about roughly 4 or 5 car lengths back to Bill Edwards, which translates to about 0.6 of a second. Canonzaro just got to hit his marks here for this final lap, but bear in mind, we ended up seeing Josh Edmondson pick up the victory in his heat race. If Canonzaro closes out the victory here in this heat race, that means that these two guys are going to be starting shotgun on the field in the upcoming 12-lap B main.
No, Edwards might have a go at it into turn 6. He's right there. If he can set up this next couple of corners, he might be able to get a run down on the straightaway. We've seen a drag race already to the line. If he sends it into the inside, I don't know if he's too far back to do it. Looks like the Canonzaro is going to come out of the final turn. It's going to take Heat 2 away from Bill Edwards behind, and then it'll be Mike Tellier and Bob Giaquinto, who started on the pole, will finish out the second heat in a 4th place position.
Win there for John Canonzaro, who so far this season, it's not exactly been his year. He's had an average starting position of 9th and average finishing position of 11th, and he's only made a handful of starts during the course of the season. I believe he made his debut on the season, I want to say it was back at the Charlotte Roval 3 weeks ago. Time for the main race, 12 laps in total, and to your point, we're now putting double the field that we had in our heats onto the racetrack, and if Charlotte Roval is anything to go by, this is going to be very chaotic, especially in the first couple of corners of the racetrack, because you've got drivers that didn't finish all that well in their heat races starting up at the front, the faster trucks that won their heat races starting towards the back, so there's going to be quite a differing opinion on braking zones in these first couple of corners.
Especially down into turn 3, the heaviest braking zone on the circuit. Getting these trucks down from 120 plus miles per hour down into almost a 40 to 30 mile an hour window. We'll have to see what they can accomplish by getting in there cleanly, if they can get in there cleanly. But you got Edmondson, Canonzaro, Parisi, and Edwards. Don't count on Edwards. The fastest trucks will be starting out 6th on through 9th. Your first place position driver will actually be Bob Giaquinto. Felix Roy never got onto the grid for his heat and didn't get to the grid for our A or our B main, so he won't be taking part in tonight's race. or any of tonight's races, I would say, unless he gets into the A main. But it will be Bob Giaquinto. Stephen Cageman will be lining up in a net second place, and it'll be Mike Tellier, Tristan Maher, your top 4. Then Edwards, Parisi, Cannizzaro, and Edmondson will make up the rest of the field.
We've seen this before out of Edmondson week after week, starting towards the back and able to cut his way to the front. The fun part is to see just how many laps it takes for him to be able to do so. Green flag about to wave for Giaquinto and Cageman. We're underway in the B main, only 12 laps, and the 23 did not get going. Mike Tellier, on the other hand, did. He's going to take him 3 wide. That's Parisi on the bottom, as Tristan Maher all over the back bumper of Cageman for the top spot. Now he gets put in the middle, 3 wide. Oh, this is going to be interesting because we're 3 wide, 2 rows deep.
Almost 4 wide coming off of turn 2, going into turn 3. They're almost 4 wide again. Parisi goes from almost a last place position on the grid to the lead of the race, but gets bumped by Maher. They're still battling. Can they get through the chicane cleanly? It's a tight chicane, leaning on each other. Edmondson from the back of the grid's going to come up to the front of the field, tries to challenge Maher for the lead as everyone fans out behind them side by side.
We got to flip. Sorry, we got to flip. It's, I believe, the
Cageman.
Stephen Cageman. Don't think that's going to bring out a caution, as they were really wadded up after Edmondson forced Bill Edwards off the track. Then Cannizzaro nearly hooked him. They were wadded up about 4 trucks, and Cageman's truck just popped up into the air, and up and over he went. Edmondson has moved up to second place, and you hit the nail right on the head. He muscled his way up to the front.
Josh Edmondson actually had the lead on the first lap. It was Tristan Maher this time around that muscled his way to the lead in the 50, or made that the 98. Now here comes Edmondson putting the horn on the back end of the 98, going through the chicane. Here comes Parisi to try and have something to say about it. Tellier's coming up to the back of the field. Still close quarter racing on lap 2 of 12 in our B main, but I would dare say that Mayer might be the dark horse of this race. He didn't show particularly much speed in his heat race, but now he's showing a lot of speed, and he might take it to Edmondson, Parisi, and all the rest.
His third in his heat race, and he wasn't that far back behind the photo finish between Edmondson and Connor Parisi, so he might have something in terms of speed for these 2 teammates. But that last time by, even despite the contact, Josh Edmondson only about maybe a tenth slower than Tristan Maher. He's now clear of Parisi for second place. He'll try to go to work here on Tristan Maher through the road course section, which based off that first lap is really the strong section for the 58.
Absolutely, this is where Edmondson shines, trying to get through the chicane. Oh, they're awful close to cutting the chicane, you know. They almost got all their tires off of the racing surface, but it doesn't look like they're going to get a penalty for it. I don't think any penalties have been handed out for track limits, as personally, I don't really think there are track limits at this racetrack. The way they've been racing is sideways Edmondson on the way out onto the oval section. Now he's got Parisi right behind him. These are the 2 teammates. They've worked together quite a bit this season. I don't know if they'll be too keen on working together this time around, as Parisi took the front end and basically used it as I'm still here, I'm going to try and challenge you now. He might have a go out into turn 3.
See what he does in this heavy braking zone area. He's put the bumper a couple of times to Josh Edmondson back in their heat, and does it again here in the B main again too. Keep an eye on the top left. Only 12 laps around this road course, so not a whole lot of time to work with. If you make a mistake, not a whole lot of time to be able to mount a comeback. Tristan Maher going to make the rear bumper of his 98 as wide as he possibly can. He's hoping that Parisi takes the pressure off of him and battles his teammate for second place. But look at this. Edmondson, nice cut there to the left through that final corner. He's going to clear before they even get back to the start-finish line.
No mistake by Mayer into the final turn, has him over, drive the corner. Now he's going to have to play catch-up as Edmondson takes the lead of the race, although Mayer's still fast, and I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to set up a move down in here. See what he does, goes to the outside, slots in line with the 58, goes to the outside of the racetrack, and I know what he's going to try and do. He's going to try the old switcheroo, but he can't quite do it. Tries to duck it down to the inside. Now he's got the power down. As long as he can hold it down, looks like he spun the tires just ever so slightly out of the turn through the chicane. Now Edmondson opens up the advantage. Parisi now has a go for second place.
And on board here with Bill Edwards. He's got the best seat in the house right now. Get that guy a bowl of popcorn as he watches the top four in front of him mixing it up. And how about the fact here, too? This is a road course, but you can throw a blanket over the top five. They're all separated by about 2.5 seconds. When you consider road course racing, that's very close proximity.
That's a very tight road course that they're racing on right now. One of the shortest that I've seen. I think his rivals lengthwise to something like maybe a Lime Rock Park, where it's extremely close quarters the entire way around the track, and everything is contained here. At Lime Rock, you kind of lose everyone behind the trees, but today you can see every part of the racetrack, and it just makes it feel that much closer as Parisi now under fire for mayor as they go through the chicane yet again, side by side, very close, making it through there. Off the track goes Maher, trying to get back on the track, hits the apex, washes out. Now here comes Tellier, and ever since Maher lost the lead, it just seems like that 98's falling off the wagon a bit. Doesn't seem like that he's kept his tires very well at all as he's losing ground, sliding through turns, and I would dare say that right now, Tellier might be able to catch him and pass him if he keeps spinning around like this.
I'd say the biggest issue right now for Tristan Maher is after he had Edmondson alongside of him and then finally kind of Parisi, it took away his optimal lane. He kind of had to change up the lane he was taking going through the road course section. You saw there when Parisi made the pass for second place, Tristan Maher putting those left side tires over on the grass. Now these trucks are built for off-road racing, but you're definitely going to get a lot more grip if your tires are connected to the racetrack than they are to the grass, a little bit more slick. Tristan Maher is not going away quietly, though. Back to the bumper of Connor Parisi for second place.
And tries to get up to challenge. Finding a place on the racetrack right now is the difficult part because you want to put your car right down on the inside line and try to get the power out, but as soon as you try to do that, it seems that the truck washes out from underneath you and you can't really get the power on, especially with the transition out of the final turn onto the banking. It's a bit difficult for them to really gauge where their truck will bite and where it won't. Edmondson is checked out, has completely left, about a 1.5 advantage over second place battle between Parisi and Maher, and then it's another about 2.5 gap back to Tellier Edwards. That's another battle potentially brewing, as Canonzaro will be kind of all by his lonesome in 6th place, and someone that's all by his lonesome are Bob Giaquinto, who is running 7th place right now, a total of 13 seconds off the lead, and then Cageman rounding out our top 8 and rounding out the field will be 18 seconds, almost 19 seconds back to the leader and 5 seconds up to Giaquinto as battle for second, still hot. And you think that Mayer is trying to figure out a way to set the move, but it's so difficult to figure out where there's really only 2 places that you can really make the pass stick, and that's into 3. And then if you can make it work, the run back into 3. So realistically 3, maybe the chicane also.
And also with them running on asphalt, the tire heat's going to build up in these trucks the longer the run goes on, and it's going to make your ability to drive deeper into the corner less and less of a factor, especially in those heavy braking zones. You don't want to make a mistake because you end up probably being the one that pays the price for it. Of course, Stevie Cageman back there with the flip that we saw. If you're wondering why we don't see John Canonzaro up here towards the front, not only on the first lap did he hit one of those rumble strips and nearly flipped the truck over, but he also was the one that made that contact with Bill Edwards and Stephen Cageman, flipping the 22 over. Lost him a lot of time on track and no caution to be able to bunch them back up, so he's just kind of been back all by his lonesome in that 6th position. He is starting to close in on Bill Edwards, about half a second for that 5th position, but it's taken him a long time to be able to get back up and leap even into the vicinity of the top 5. Boy, Tristan Maher, the problem here for Tristan Maher is the lane he wants to take to drive it into that corner. He had this problem with Edmondson, he's having it with Parisi. They're taking that lane away from him. They're kind of blocking him in some respect into that corner.
So it's a shame the fastest line happens to be where another car is, so taking the benefit away of Maher, but he's setting it up. And what I've noticed also is that Parisi and Maher have been slowly catching up to Edmondson. Edmondson's kind of slowed down a bit. You wonder maybe his tires are starting to fall off, and the likes of Parisi and Maher might have been running around a little bit. Despite the fact that they've been battling, they might have been running around a little bit because the gap used to be about 1.3 seconds back to Parisi. It's now fallen to just under 0.7 of a second, so we could see a battle for the lead potentially, although with only a lap and a half to go, it's unlikely, and Maher might have something to say with Parisi before we get to that point.
Might have a battle for second, might have a battle for fifth. You saw Canonzaro in very close proximity to the back bumper of Bill Edwards. There's your top three. Edmondson, Parisi, Tristan Maher, about a second and a half separating all three of those drivers. The white flag going to be displayed this time for Josh Edmondson. And if this B main is anything to go by, the field's going to get inverted. He's going to be put to the rear of the field for the upcoming A main, and he made his way up, as you said, led the first lap of the B main after starting dead last. That's certainly not a deterrent to him at all. Just got to be able to make it around the circuit one more time. Let's drop back to the battle for fourth place, because it was for fifth. All of a sudden, Bill Edwards and John Canonzaro have reeled in Mike Tellier, so three-man fight for the final spots inside the top five.
It's getting pretty intense back here for the fourth place position as Tellier's just trying to hold on. I think his tires might have fallen off a bit more than he'd like to admit. Here come, look at the run that Canonzaro got. Now tries to bump Edwards out of the way and will do so. Move Canonzaro up into the fifth place position as he tries to now set his sights on Tellier. I don't know if he's got enough time to do it or enough racetrack to do it. He might though, as around the final turn, here comes Edmondson to take the A main or the B main. We'll have Parisi and Maher in second and third, and it looks like that everything's been settled out back for fourth place as Tellier will just hold on against Canonzaro, but Canonzaro moves up into a top 5 spot after battling with Edwards down into turn 3.
And a little dual drifting through NASCAR 1 and 2 there for Edmondson and Connor Parisi, and they're going to have to do it all over again as they'll be starting towards the rear of the field for the upcoming A main. Now, one thing that we should mention here, one storyline that we've had during the course of the last 2 weeks at both Crandon and Belle Isle is fuel strategy has come into play. Drivers have not been able to make it the entire distance on what they had in the tank. Here tonight, seems very unlikely they're going to have to worry about fuel, but as we saw there, at least on that last run in the B main, looks like tires are going to be the main talking point and preserving those tires for the end of the race.
Yeah, it's going to be a long one, and these tires get abused at this racetrack as you're going full speed throughout turn 1 and 2, and that will, with the lack of downforce, you're basically sliding throughout the turns in order to make the pass, so we'll have to find out what they can accomplish there. And you mentioned the fact that on fuel strategy or the distance that you can go on a fuel run is, we saw it come to close terms at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park where we ended up having a lot of drivers fall a couple laps short and they had to come down and get some fuel before the end of the race. So we might have to see them do the same here because you're basically, and the reason why we saw it at Mosport the entire time is because down the straightaways into turn 8, there was intense, you were basically on the throttle on the limiter the entire way down, and that was a good 10 to 15 seconds that you were on the limiter. And it's a kind of a similar story here where you're around the front straightaway throughout the first 2 turns and down the back straightaway. So it might be a similar sense to Mosport where it'll happen all over again. We'll have to find out and see if that will be the case.
3.5 minutes here left in warm-up before they will put them under the green for the upcoming 25-lap A main event. Let's talk a little bit more about that B main. I mean, the fact that Edmondson was able to work his way from dead last up to the race lead, was that a case of him taking everybody by surprise, everybody not expecting he was going to make that quick of a charge? And if that's the case, those drivers now they're going to be starting up towards the front, do they have a little bit of a defensive plan in their mind to not allow him to do it again?
They might have a little bit more of an idea of where he can make the moves at. I don't know if there's going to be a way for them to stop him. They would have to coordinate between everybody in order to do that. But something that I'm noticing, and I want to bring this to light, is Josh Edmondson is practicing getting onto the pit lane. So that says to me that they may not be able to make it on fuel tonight, and that's the case. That what does that throw in for these drivers, knowing that if they have to make a fuel stop, it might shake the field up quite a bit. And if Edmondson or any of the drivers that have to start at the back, and we saw them rocket to the front of the field, it might cause them to have some issues if they can't get down onto the pit lane, and that goes for everybody.
To your point, we just saw right there, looks like Connor Parisi also perhaps getting onto pit lane. So yeah, I thought that more than likely with the length of this racetrack, the amount of time it takes them to turn a lap here as opposed to the bigger tracks that we've been at in the last couple of weeks, like Crandon 2 weeks ago, last week at Belle Isle, that fuel would not be a concern. But That is definitely going to be a bit of a curveball here for these drivers. We've not really seen pit road play that much of a factor into the outcome of a race. Drivers have done a very good job getting onto pit road, getting it down to pit road speed, and avoiding a penalty. The only thing I can really recollect where pit road played a factor was drivers' miscalculations of how much fuel they had to take on for the close of the race. I remember a couple of drivers back at Crandon had to come down a second time, did not take on enough fuel. But that also then, if we do have the possibility of pit stops here in this race, throws another monkey wrench into the business. Because let's remember back 2 weeks ago at Crandon, where we were pretty much told everybody was going to have to come to pit road. Nobody was going to be able to make it on fuel. And Bill Edwards was able to finish in the third position because he made it that entire event on what he had in the tank. Would there be a driver out here tonight that would be willing to kind of take the gamble if the numbers are close and try and make it the entire distance without coming to pit lane?
It certainly is a option for these drivers if it's close, and I don't know what the figure is for how close they really are on the fuel mileage, but we saw a couple of drivers try to stretch it at most board, but it was just you'd have to turn 2 complete laps around the circuit, and that's a much longer circuit than this one is. And if you get stranded on one side of the racetrack because of the elevation changes, it's very unlikely that you'd be able to coast back onto the pit lane. So if the fuel mileage is you can save maybe a lap's worth of fuel, if that's all the distance the difference is, then it becomes a lot easier to do that. But if it's not, then we'll have to find out if they dare try to stretch it, because again, it will be extremely close.
Well, folks, as mentioned, this is the next to last race on the season, setting us up for championship race weekend next week at the Homestead Miami Speedway, November 2nd. We'll see here tonight if it's going to continue to be the Edmondson Parisi show, as 2 wins for Parisi, 4 wins for Edmondson. So far, the only winners on the season. Can somebody like a Mike Telly or Tristan Maher or a Bill Edwards, who have shown some really good speed here in their heat races and in the B main, can they topple those teammates from victory lane here and sneak their way into a victory before the close of the season? They're racking them up here, getting onto the grid for the 25-lap main event. Stephen Cageman, who was upside down flipping in the infield section in the B main, will be the one to lead us to green. Bob Giaquinto will line up to his insides. Actually, I believe it's going to be Giaquinto, the interim pole sitter. Then it's going to be John Cannonzaro moving up a road to third. Bill Edwards will be fourth. Tristan Maher here for this 25-lap main event. Saw things get crazy on the first lap of the B main, Anthony. 4 wide on one occasion. I think we're going to see a little case of deja vu here in this A main.
Absolutely. I think we're going to see those drivers coming from the back of the pack that are fast, and they'll try to make the same run that they did the last time. It was kind of fun to watch Edmondson go all the way from the rear of the field to try and get through, make that 7 other drivers to get up to the front, but we'll have to watch and find out. What I'm concerned about is that they were able to make it work the last time, although they were leaning on each other to make it work the last time. If something happens and goes wrong this time around and we have a incident where, remember, we saw that we had a Stephen Cageman, he ended up on the receiving end of a flip going in through turn 5 and 6, so, or make that 6 and 7. So having that being said, he might be trying to play a little bit defensive, maybe not want to have that happen again. But if that happens at the front of the field going into turn 3, we might be able to see what happens when you have to put these drivers in a tough situation. Green flag back in the air, and 5 wide already, going for the lead of the race. Look at Edwards up the middle of the race right there. 5 wide heading into turn 1.
And that's contact. Parisi getting into Cageman. I think Cageman was able to save it, though. We're going to now be double wide going into this sweeping left-hander. Bill Edwards will go to the point. Cannonzaro looks to cross him over. He'll get alongside. Mike Tellier right there as well. Look at their 3 wide back there. That's Edmondson in the 58 getting alongside of Tristan Maher. That's for 4th place, as Bill Edwards looks like he very well might lead this first lap. Cannonzaro has second thoughts about that, though.
Absolutely. Tries to find out if he can close in and snipe off the exit row. Cannonzaro slides. Tellier slides up the racetrack as well. Maher goes through. Here comes Edmondson and Parisi. Didn't quite get to the front this time around, but they're still running in 4th place. Now to the inside of Maher. Can he get the run? We certainly got the advantage. He's gotten to the inside. Can he pull alongside? I don't know if he'll be able to do it, but into turn 3, can he stick the landing into turn 3? Backs out of it, tries to set up a crossover. I don't know if he's going to be close enough to do it. He does to the inside, goes through. Can he get it into the chicane, or does Maher have anything to say about it through, and they still touch on the way out?
A door banging there, Edmondson and Maher, as well as Parisi and Tellier. That's battles from 3rd back to the 6th position. Tristan Maher going to try and hold off Edmondson here through this left-hander. Edmondson cuts it as low as he possibly can. He'll clear for the spot. Parisi looked to follow, couldn't do it, and Cannizzaro looked like another issue off that final turn in back-to-back laps. He falls into the clutches of Edmondson now for 2nd place.
To the outside goes the 98. We'll make that the 58. The 98 in close succession. There's the double wide in front. Maher tries to set up a run into turn 3. Can't quite get the run in. Here comes Edmondson to go around the outside, and I think he's spinned it. Oh, he just saved it. He's back and slid out of the turn. Cannizzaro parks the bus on the way out. Makes it so that Parisi now goes around the outside over his teammate.
Okay, Mike Tellier, I thought he might stick his nose in there 3 wide through that right-hander, but instead thought better of it. Teammates will battle side by side for 3rd place. Parisi has the inside advantage, heading back onto the front straightaway. He will door the 58, move into the 3rd spot. Tristan Maher right there to be able to try and capitalize. Single file from 3rd back through 6th still with Parisi, Edmondson, Maher, and Tellier. This is the best battle on the track right now is Cannizzaro and Bill Edwards. They're trying to check out.
Between the two teammates going down the back straightaway alongside, now comes Edmondson. Can he get the run in? Oh, there was a bit of contact on the way in as they wait to the last second before they get on the brakes. Maher right behind to capitalize if something happens. Might try the crossover. Actually locks up a bit. Can't get the car to rotate through. Now bangs off of Parisi. Edmondson through the chicane. Tellier behind. There's a lot of chaos happening throughout the 2nd sector of the racetrack going through the 3rd sector. I don't know if it looks like that Maher might have bogged down a bit. He's losing ground, and now that Edmondson's gotten through, he's now chasing down Cannizzaro. If I'm Cannizzaro, I'd be a little nervous about getting off of the final turn. He's had a lot of struggles to get off of there. He's now just got to figure out a way to do it without spinning the tires. He might be able to keep the 2nd place, or at least keep Edmondson back there for quite a deal. But the driver that's really looking forward to seeing all this unfold is Bill Edwards. There is, 2 seconds back to 3rd place, a second back to 2nd place. He's kind of checked out in his own right.
Interesting, I brought up Bill Edwards as the guy back at Crandon who was doing the fuel saving and able to make it the full scheduled distance without coming to pit road. I don't think he's in fuel save mode right now. He's out in clean air, clean racetrack. He does have a couple car lengths back John Cannizzaro, but my goodness, it's like bumper cars here from 3rd place on back. Edmondson, Parisi, Tristan Maher. They'll open up some space between each other, and then just like that, they accordion back up nose to tail.
Yeah, it's fun to watch how much they slinky throughout the field, and they're still doing it, but now it looks like they've kind of gotten out to a bit of an advantage, or at least tried to put some gaps between each other. I don't know where this happened at, but Bill Edwards is actually losing ground to Cannizzaro. Now Cannizzaro's put on the jets. There's a battle for the lead happening. Cannizzaro had to go up the inside, couldn't make anything of it. But there's something wrong with Bill Edwards. Either that or he's in fuel save, but you think he's trying to stretch it all the way to the end of the race.
We'll have to see if that's the case. Bill Edwards, of course, pulled off that strategy a couple of weeks ago. Wouldn't put it past him to try that strategy here again. And if he is trying to pull that strategy off, what better place to do it than from the race lead? Yeah, you might end up losing a couple of spots in the process, but if you're up front and you're able to drop back to around 3rd or 4th position, that would mean that if Cannizzaro, Edmondson, and company get around you, if you can at least maintain a pretty good gap between the two of them, then, as soon as they hit pit road, you're going to have a huge gap when you stay out. As Cannizzaro going to cross to the inside here for the top spot. Let's see if Bill Edwards just gives up the position or if he's going to fight. And looks like he went wide. Does he go to cross?
Whoa!
Oh, well, that's a crossover and a half. That's contact as he goes through the grass, and here comes everybody else.
Here comes Edmondson through. Here comes Parisi through. Battle for the lead now as there was contact between Cannizzaro and Edwards. Edmondson says, "Thank you very much. I'll take the lead of the race." Parisi's going to slide into third place. Edwards now in a battle with Maher. And all of a sudden, what used to be a spread out field is now a gaggle of 5 trucks. Now Edmondson's out in front. I think that he was just hanging back. That's probably the reason why he was hanging back, just waiting to see what happened in front of him. But Cannizaro's got a fast truck. I wouldn't put it past him to stay up in this lead group, but you got to wonder how much of this back and forth is due to results of fuel saving. We were talking about how it's short. If I'm running the math right, they might be a lap or two short, just based off of Motorsport's metrics. They might be a lap and a half short, maybe a full 2 laps short on fuel. So is it possible to save that much? I don't know, but Parisi doesn't look like he's too concerned about saving fuel. He wants to the inside of that 58.
There with John Cannizzaro, and yeah, this is something that I was really hoping to see back in the B main, because obviously Cannizzaro was in an entirely different heat from Edmondson and Parisi. Edmondson actually picking up the victory in his heat, Cannizzaro the victory in his heat, and those two actually had a little bit of a back and forth in practice as well as to who could set the fastest lap. Cannizzaro was up at the top of the leaderboard for about the first half of practice, then Edmondson jumped up to the top of the board for the second half. So both of them have very fast trucks, and with Cannizzaro running into the early issue in the B main, we never really got to see him stacked up against the 58 and the 11. Now we're starting to get an idea of where he stands in terms of speed to the top 2 ahead of him, and he's right there with him, no doubt about it. We'll see if he's going to be able to get that second spot away from Connor Parisi once again, as battle is on for 5th place. Bill Edwards, who was out in front, all of a sudden back in the 5th position, and I'm wondering if, even if he wasn't saving fuel out in front, if now that he's back in the 5th position, if the strategy has entirely changed, if he's called an audible and might be going into fuel save mode.
Yeah, he doesn't have to battle so hard now to keep the lead of the race, so might stretch into a run. He's got company with him. He's got Maher and Tellier behind him, so at least he'll be able to get a little bit of fuel saving down the straightaways. If he backs off into the turns a little bit more, he might be able to save a lot more fuel going in, so have to keep an eye on whether or not his strategy has changed. Drivers at the back of the pack are still Cageman, who has... both Cageman and Giaquinto seem to have struggled quite a bit at this racetrack. They've had great runs at other places. It's just tonight, nothing seeming to work for these two, but they're still soldiering on, running in the 7th and 8th position as the 3 leaders, the top 3, Edmondson, Parisi, Cannizzaro, still right with each other. Edwards, Tellier, and Maher, about the similar distance between each other. So now it definitely changes the dynamic of the race. You've gotten into your slots. Now you think about the rest of the strategy and whether or not you can stretch this all the way, or if we're going to have to see green flag stops.
By this time last week, we would have probably been completing the 4th lap at Belle Isle. We are almost halfway through the main event here at the Iowa Road Course, as the teammates, they have closed up the gap nose to tail. John Cannizzaro right there again as well. They've accordion back up, the top 3 have, and we'll see what's going to be made of this in just mere moments. He talked about Stephen Cageman. Cageman 5th in the points coming into this race. The driver he's got to worry about to maintain his spot up in the top 5 in the standings would be Mike Tellier. Tellier 13 points behind Cageman. Tellier 7th in the points. They got Vincent Valvano separating the 2 of them, but Valvano not in the field here tonight. And, one thing that obviously, if somebody back here is saving fuel and planning on making it the rest of the way, that they have a little bit more of an advantage of here at Iowa than they would have 2 weeks ago at Crandon. I remember it was, I believe, James Donahue was the one pulling off the strategy there, as well as Parisi gave it a look there on the driver's left. But he ended up coming off, Edmondson ended up coming off of pit road. I believe it was about 7 seconds behind James Donahue, and Donahue was 13 seconds behind Edmondson when Edmondson headed for pit road. Right now, your top 6 are separated by less than 5 seconds. So there is a very easy advantage if you're able to make it the rest of the way and these top guys have to come to pit road, that you could have yourself, maybe a 15, 20, 25 second gap over them, depending on how long they spend on pit road, which, again, as mentioned, it's a very short race. I don't think there'd be enough time for those guys to reel you back in.
Absolutely not. It would be such a gap, that insurmountable gap, just depending also when they pit. These lap times have been pretty quick considering that we are at a road circuit, and I just want to imagine that these trucks, with all fairness to them, they're not built for this, but they are not the fastest vehicles that we've seen in competition, and it's no fault of their own. It's just that they are set up for a completely different discipline of driving. But can you imagine if we had stuck some GT3s on this track, perhaps maybe some open wheel F4 would have been fun to watch at this racetrack. It'd been, kart-sized race car. Even F2 would have been fun to watch at this racetrack. They would be putting down some extremely fast laps, and that's just kind of how short the circuit is. I believe in this configuration, it's a little bit more than a mile and a half. It's not quite 2 miles though. So think about a Auto Club Speedway. That's basically what we are running in this road configuration, just about the same distance as, again, we said earlier, a Lime Rock Park, and the distance. And if you can gauge that track as an example of how quickly the laps would turn, there is, I believe the GT3s can turn something that sub 50-second laps, maybe 45-second-ish laps. So that track's quite a little bit longer than this one, if you could believe it. But now coming around to complete. We actually go on to lap 15, and everyone has settled into their own run. And it's something that drivers, when they get into a run like this, they start to, muscle memory around the racetrack. And I've noticed that Josh Edmondson has been extremely clean with how he's maneuvering the truck around this racetrack. These trucks, they have a tendency to slide out from underneath you, and he's planning it down and making it look like that he's got a lot of downforce, and these trucks have very little to no downforce at all. So great driving's craft to get around the racetrack the way he is. Again, these trucks are not built for asphalt. They are very much designed for being on dirt and designed for having elevation changes, ramps, jumps, the whole bit. And you gotta admit, they have been putting on a whale of a show on the asphalt.
It's amazing just how much you're able to pick up just from observing these guys as well. Up until this point, I had never called a Stadium Super Truck Series race. And to your point here, just kind of going to school with seeing what these drivers are doing, Edmondson, it looks like he's giving up time on the entry to the corner to then be able to get the throttle down on corner exit. On the flip side, you saw right there, kind of Parisi, look at the treads he's leaving with the right side tires, or make the left side tires rather, on his machine. He is driving it deep into the corner, getting back to the throttle sooner than the 58, trying to gain whatever time he possibly can. So in terms of tire conservation, advantage to the 58 right now, but 11 continues to keep him honest, keeps breathing down his neck, and we've seen Parisi willing to use the bumper not only in the heat race but in the previous B main. I guarantee you, if he's within striking distance, he will try the bumper once again on Edmondson, and he's running out of laps to be able to do so.
Second place battle heating up as Cannizaro's lost some ground. Oh, a little bit unhappy on the way into turn 3, leaves some smoke, locks up going into 3. It's got Maher. Oh, battle for the lead almost, as Parisi's now figured out a way to get to the inside. This is a great battle for the lead. This happened out of nowhere. It looks like that he was too far back to make a run, but now we're side by side. The two teammates willing to duke it out here at Iowa. Tries to get around the racetrack. I don't know if he's going to be able to slide up in line. He's going to lose the ground, but he's got the run. Crossover. He's got it.
To that left rear quarter panel. Didn't know if he'd get the throttle down quickly enough, but they will be side by side heading into this corner. If he doesn't clear him already, it would be advantage 11, provided he doesn't swing wide into the left-hander. Let's see what they do down to one of the heaviest braking zones of this track. Edmondson give up the spot, back up the corner, and cross him over through the S's. Yes, he does. Might exchange a little bit of paint here. The left to right hand transition, and Edmondson swings back around the top. But look at this, a simple battle for the race lead all of a sudden brings third and fourth place into the picture. Cannizzaro and Tristan Mayer now making a four-man fight,
as Edmondson now gains some ground over Parisi, as he's going to try to get back going up in the right direction to get to the back end of Edmondson. Now we know that these drivers are fast. We know that Parisi can certainly put down some fast laps, and you have to think that this was a lob up to Cannizzaro and Maher. Now they just have to ride and hope that they continue to battle. In fact, Cannizzaro might try to have a go at Parisi into turn 3 as they thunder down the back straightaway. Who breaks the latest? It looks like it's going to be... Actually, it's going to be Cannonzaro. Look at the send he has up the inside. Can he get it to stick on the way out? We've seen a lot of drivers make a move through here. Into the chicane. Oh, goodness. Cannonzaro almost got his front end taken off by Parisi, but as they continue to run now, you know that Cannonzaro, he's going to try and set that move up the next time around. He knows now what he needs to do. It all really comes down to who can get on the brakes the latest and then who can get the power down first.
Let's not forget, too, going back to the first heat race, that you can't take it all for granted until the checkered flag waves, even until the last corner, because Connor Parisi put a great move on his teammate Edmondson, missed out on that heat win by about a wheel. We had a photo finish to open up the night here at Iowa Road Course, so even though right now it looks like Edmondson may have the race lead back in hand, keep an eye on that 11 as he tries to reel him back in. Less than 6 laps to go.
And as they continue to battle, he's coming out of crunch time. If they need to pit, then it's going to come within these last 5 laps. I have to feel they might be able to make it all the way now. I noticed that the pace slowed down throughout the middle part of the race, so everyone might have saved just enough fuel to make it to the end. Only time will tell on that metric, but as we come through the final turn yet again to complete lap 25 laps to go. Once we get to the stripe.
Ooh, little contact for third. Tristan Maher got into the left rear quarter panel of John Cannonzaro. Cannonzaro hangs onto it. Ooh, brushes the wall a little bit there with the right side of his truck going into turn 1.
And now Maher goes through to the inside. He's got a pretty big gap back to Cannonzaro now. I don't know if Cannonzaro is going to have enough. He's bet too far back to make the run into 3, but on the way out through 4 and 5, he might have a go at it. If he gets right up to the back end, I don't think he's too far back into now 6 and 7. So going through, and I think that Edmondson might have used up some of his tires in that last battle because Parisi's now closing in on the back end of his teammate. 4 laps to go this time around. So Seth, we've talked about it plenty tonight for this race specifically, but I want to throw it up the question. Do we see this pit stop? Because these two teammates, Parisi and Edmondson, were certainly practicing it like it was going to happen. They obviously knew something that we didn't. But as the race goes on, it's looking more and more unlikely that the stop's going to happen.
Let me give you a little food for thought. You look at your top 3. They are still running 3/4 slower than their fastest lap. I'm looking back at Bill Edwards and Mike Tellier. They are running over a second slower than their fastest laps of the race. They were running in the 51.3s, 51.4s. That last time by, they both ran the 52.5s. I think they are in fuel conservation mode right now. I don't think your top 4 are in fuel conservation mode. They may be of the opinion of let the thing run out of fuel kind of strategy here and just keep this track position, because I think they know those guys back there are making sure that they hit their number to reach this checkered flag. I think with 3 laps to go, your bet is made. I think if you were going to come to pit road, especially if you're considering Edmondson and Paris' strategy, we saw them pit the halfway point last week when it was in doubt of drivers being able to make it the rest of the way at Belle Isle. I think that basically at this point in time, either they feel they've got enough to make it to the end or they're going to run out of fuel trying.
Well, Cannonzaro certainly has backed down the speed a bit. He's fallen off the wagon from Maher, so he might be in fuel save mode. Maher is now closing back into this now battle part 2 for these for the lead of the race, as Edmondson now has to play defensive against his teammate. And this is something that we've come to familiar with this season, is the battle between the teammates as we take 2 laps to go. The real question is, who can get to the line first? Who will make it to the line without running out of fuel if they need to have fuel? And all importantly, will we see a challenge for the lead? Now, Parisi's backed off quite a bit. This isn't him losing ground to Edmondson by any fault of his own. He is doing it on purpose. I wonder if there is some discrepancy of whether or not they can make it this last lap. We'll have to find out, as Edmondson, this penultimate lap, can he hold on to it? We'll have to find out.
Get really good. They'll see the white flag this time. These two teammates mixed it up last week. Belle Isle, Connor Parisi got the advantage on Josh Edmondson in that one. Edmondson's looking for his 5th win on the season. Connor Parisi is looking for his 3rd. One more time around the Iowa Road Course. It's a 5/10 of a second gap from Edmondson back to Parisi, about 4 or 5 truck lengths between those two. Let's see what Parisi has in store in this final lap. Does he have anything for Edmondson, or has he run out of tires?
Going into turn 3, he's going to send it up, almost locks it up going into 3. Couldn't quite back it down enough. Now he's going to have a go at it, though. He's got the cross. He might try to send it into turn 6. If he can do that, then this is going to be an intense run on the way out. Sends it in. I think he's a bit too far back to make any run. Out of 7 into the final turn. It looks like it's all Josh Edmondson from here on out. If he can get through the final turn cleanly, gets back on the power. Oh, he's going to be a run, though. Oh, there's contact.
Oh, contact between the two, but Edmondson hangs on. Parisi kind of pulling the playbook from Heat 1 out once again. Almost pulls off the victory, but he's going to come up just a little less than 0.2 of a second short. What a finish between the teammates here tonight at Iowa.
Another fantastic run by the teammates tonight, and they continue their dominance throughout this series. And with this win, I believe that Edmondson might have just locked up the championship with this victory tonight, with both of his victories in the A and B main. So we might be looking at our champion. But another great run from Tristan Maher finds himself in a 3rd place after everything's done. And Edmondson, again, burning it down for what it seems to be just a complete dominance of the sport.
It's his 5th win on the season. He had 51 points over Tristan Maher coming into tonight, and to your point, yeah, only 1 race left on the year. Next week at Homestead, Miami. That is the championship done and dusted. Josh Edmondson now can just head into Homestead, not having to worry about defending the championship. He can try and go out and get his 6th win on the season, but you see the celebration with the teammates there. Kind of Parisi going to pull up alongside, and we'll take a look here at the finishing results from this evening's event. There was a point here tonight we both kind of said, didn't even realize that Iowa had a road course, but I'll tell you what, it brought about some really good action here with our heat races, the B main, eventual A main, almost a photo finish in the A main, a photo finish in one of our heat races, and here's the drivers and where they finished in this one. Only 8 drivers taking part, down to Giaquinto, and I don't know, Connor Parisi, Tristan Mayer, there may be a little bit of a battle for 2nd in the point standings by the time we get to Homestead next week. Maybe try and go for a 1-2 finish between the teammates and the final finishing results on the year for the points.
Yeah, it's definitely coming down into the tight part of the season where we start speculating, where is everyone else going to fall into the championship, because that's very important as well. We always seem to focus on who the champion will be, but there's another 10 drivers that need to finish out their season as well. So we'll see what happens when we get to our final race, which is quickly approaching. As I've said it before, but I'll say it again. These guys should compete in Formula Drift with the way that Parisi and Edwards are drifting around the race winner.
Now let's see if we can talk with some of our top 3 finishers here tonight. Let's talk with the guy that came into this race 2nd in the point stands. He'll finish 3rd here this evening, Tristan Mayer. Hey Tristan, Anthony and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Got you guys.
And I mean, great racing here tonight at the Iowa Road Course. One normally wouldn't remember that Iowa has a road course configuration, but man, you guys were wheeling it out there today. What were some of the key things that you yourself were kind of zoning in on and trying to make sure that you did during the course of these main event races?
So a lot of the things that I was trying to focus on was honestly turns 1 and 2 of the actual oval. You could gain or lose a lot of time if you didn't hit the right line through that corner. Because if you hit the wrong line, then you have to get out of it so you don't hit the wall. If you hit it just right, you can be in the throttle for the entire turn almost. And the next thing was breaking into the hairpin. You could lose or gain so much time breaking into the hairpin. That would honestly make or break your lap. And then the next corner that I really had trouble with was that the little chicane right after the hairpin. I hate that corner, and I might never race at this track again because of that corner.
Certainly a interesting racetrack that you guys had to go out and navigate around. It was basically an oval with a bit of a detour that we went through. But given the fact that, and I wanted to ask this question because we were speculating whether or not this would have to happen, but how close was the fuel tonight? Because I think there's only been one race where it came down to you guys needing to make a pit stop, and I believe that was at Mosport. So was the fuel going to be close tonight? I did notice that Parisi and Edmondson were practicing getting onto the pit lane. So just how close was it, and was there any concern that you'd have to pit or not?
So the way that we do it in this series is we always make the fuel very close. So I think at Belle Isle we had to pit for fuel, and I remember I lost the win at Bristol when we raced there because I had to pit for fuel, and then other people didn't have to pit for fuel. So it was so close, it just came down to driving style and how much you were saving and that kind of stuff. I know Mike Tellier only had 0.2 laps of fuel left when he crossed the finish line, and I had almost 4. So I don't know. There was a big variation in fuel usage there.
Really cool to be able to get those numbers and realize, who was able to save fuel, who wasn't, because we were kind of looking at this racetrack and trying to figure out if you were saving fuel, where were the areas where you would be able to do just that. But Tristan, obviously, you're trying to preserve that second spot in the point standings to finish out the season. It's going to be close between you and the 11, it looks like, down this home stretch into the finale at Homestead, Miami. But a great run for you here tonight, third place. And now we'll give it the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
I would like to thank TNR for putting the league on. Mike Tellier, he puts a lot of work into this series, making sure that all the servers are set up good. Everybody who comes out and races, these trucks are a blast to drive. Doesn't matter what track you're at, it always ends up being a blast. You guys up in the FRN booth, you guys do a great job. I love watching the broadcast afterwards. And I think that's it.
Tell you what, these trucks are a blast to watch.
I'd say seeing the back bumpers of those 2 trucks that were in front of me tonight is a familiar sight, huh?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a blast to be able to watch these trucks up here in the booth as well, to observe how you guys are able to wheel around these different track configurations. But congratulations on another solid outing here tonight, Tristan, and best of luck in the finale next week.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Talk to the guy that brings home second place here tonight, Connor Parisi. It's Anthony and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Man, I mean, we saw a couple of times here tonight in the heat, in the B main. We saw you put the bumper to the 58. You made that charge there in the closing stages here on the final lap of the A main. We knew that you had a little bit of strategy in your hip pocket from the heat when you did that crossover move out of the final corner coming to the start finish line. I mean, if the contact hadn't been made, do you think you would have gotten him? I mean, just what little extra thing did you need to be able to win that drag race back to the start finish line?
I needed more tires. I slid them real bad coming to 2 to go, and I couldn't get them quite cool enough to make a real charge. So coming to the 2 to go, I really blew the corner and I slid hard, so I knew it was over at that point. I was kind of just hoping he'd make a big mistake too, which he didn't. He's a good driver, so good win to him.
There was a big stack up at the beginning of the race. I went 5 wide at the start of the race, and then by the time we got it down into turn 3, everyone was trying to slot in line. There was quite a bit of contact being made in the opening laps, but ever since they got settled out, it kind of got into a bit of a green flag run after that, or a bit of a calmer run after that. But how was those first opening laps of the race from your perspective, having to navigate your way through that?
Yeah, I was middle 5 wide, so that's a suboptimal position to be in. I tried to back out of it. Me and the 22 tangled a little bit, but we both kept going, so no harm, no foul, I guess. But the rest of it was just trying to keep the truck from bogging down and the hairpin coming into the infield. That was the big spot where guys were making mistakes and going too wide. So just trying to survive that and the chicane afterwards, I think, was the key to the race.
Connor, we were just talking moments ago with Tristan Maher. He says that obviously in this league, the fuel is very, very close when you guys take the green flag. How close were you on fuel? Because it was very difficult to tell if anybody out there was saving fuel with the lap times that we had on our end.
Oh, we were full throttle the whole time. I had enough to do quite a bit of celebratory donuts at the end. Fuel was not an issue for us tonight.
Well, Connor, great run for you here this evening. Another solid outing after your victory last week. Second place here tonight. Going to be interesting to see if you can get your third win on the season in the finale at Homestead. Also, as mentioned, it's going to be a very close battle, I think, between yourself and the 98 for that second in the standing spot next week in the finale also. So best of luck on that. We're now going to give you the opportunity to thank some sponsors and do some shout-outs.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for putting on the show. Thank the admins for putting on the league. As I said last week, I really love it. Hope to be back next season. And then all the guys at Jim B. Esports. We got Fistful of Bourbon, Next Level Racing, Dirtfish Rally School, General Tire, and Vision Wheel.
That's Connor Parisi. He's your runner-up finisher here tonight at the Iowa Road Course. Congratulations once again, and best of luck next week on capping out what's been a great season.
Thanks, fellas.
All right, let's go down to victory lane. Fifth time this season in 7 races. It's Josh Edmondson that burns it down here today at the Iowa Road Course. Hey, Josh, Anthony, and Seth up here in the F-Red booth. You got us?
Yep.
Man, I'll tell you what, dominating performance here today. You sweep this evening in the Heat, the B main, and the A main, but it wasn't exactly all that easy. A lot of defensive moves having to be put on in the B main and in the A main, especially on the final lap, final corner coming to the checkered flag. But one thing that I noticed here at this particular racetrack was it would seem like you guys would get spread out. 2 car lengths, 3 car lengths between you for first back to second, second back to third. Then you turn around and look the following lap, you guys are all nose to tail. What is it about this road course that brought about that type of racing?
I think it was that hairpin coming off of the oval. It's a really hard braking zone, and then it's in such a tight corner that if you turn too hard, the truck will flip, and you get to a little too much speed, and you just get massive understeer. So that was my biggest issue. I kept making mistakes in that corner, and then the other thing was slowdowns. It was super easy to get a slowdown on the chicane right after that. So yeah, it was probably mistakes. It's really hard to run consistent on that track.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting dynamic watching this track. How it was so tight. It was a road circuit, but it was certainly one of the more compressed road circuits that we've seen, and that's saying something considering that we've been to, street circuits such as Belle Isle and the like. But when I get your take on it, the tires seem to be one of the hot topics tonight. And speaking of hot topics, a lot of them got hot. So how was your tire temps all night, and how were you managing it?
Yeah, that was another crucial thing. Anytime you slide or light your tires up coming out of the corner, they get hot, and then it's even harder to do the next couple sections. So yeah, that is huge. And then it felt like a normal oval race on that, where you actually do go around the oval. You have to lift and try and get to the bottom and get as good a run off the corner as you can. So the track had all kinds of elements that were really tough. I think it was, for me anyway, it was a lot harder than Belle Isle or Canadian Tire.
With this victory here tonight, mathematically clinching the championship heading into next week at Homestead, Miami. So obviously a lot of pressure taken off of you in that regard. But man, 7 starts this season, 5 trips to victory lane. Can you make it 6?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, that sounds good. That's a good stat there. I like that. And I didn't know it was for sure wrapped up, but that's good news. That's awesome. Feels good to be able to do that. It's been fun racing against all these guys. It's been an awesome season. So yeah, I'm stoked to be able to get the championship.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing how you're going to put the exclamation point on what's been a absolutely incredible year here when we get to Homestead next week. But congratulations on your victory here tonight at the very tricky Iowa Road Course. Josh, we're going to turn the mic over to you for some victory lane. Thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks to you guys putting on the broadcast. Stoked to go back and watch that. It's always entertaining. And then Mike and everybody, TNR, putting on the league. It's a really fun league, good group of guys. So I appreciate that. And then shout out to everybody on the team: Jim Beaver Esports, Fistful of Bourbon, Winners Get Whiskey, General Tire, Next Level Racing, Polaris Razor, Rigid Industries, and Vision Wheels.
That's Josh Edmondson. It's his 5th victory on the season here tonight at Iowa. Congratulations once again, and best of luck next week in the upcoming season finale.
Thanks.
Season finale going to be at the Homestead Miami Speedway, as mentioned. I'm pretty certain it's the road course configuration of Homestead Miami Speedway, which is No, pretty big road course for a pretty big finale. Going to be really interesting to see how drivers maneuver their way around there. And when you get towards the end of the season and a driver already has a championship locked up, not only does that take and relieve the pressure off of the guy who's going to eventually hoist that championship trophy, kind of takes the pressure off everybody else as well because they don't have to worry about points, don't have to worry about making sure they keep themselves in championship contention. Now they can just go out there and put all their efforts into finishing out the season with a W.
I wouldn't be surprised also if we see some drivers make some bold moves into the final race, knowing that, this is the last chance you've got this season. Might as well try to go out with a bang. So we could see some fireworks flying at the end of this one. And if it's at the road configuration at Homestead, these are going to be some long laps that we're going to be running here because it's not a very short circuit by any means. It's kind of long. So we'll have to see what these guys can do. It'll be a bit of a test of man versus machine, and that will be something fun to watch as well.
Absolutely will be. Well, what an incredible race here tonight at the Iowa Road Course. Who would have thought that this configuration of the 1.5-mile speedway that we know about would have brought about such exciting racing all the way through the field? But it's Josh Edmondson at the end of the night that burns it down for his 5th win on the season, wrapping up the championship and now setting us up for what should be a very interesting finale next week at the Homestead Miami Speedway. That's going to be next Tuesday night. Green flag scheduled to fly at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But Anthony, appreciate you joining the booth for a good one here tonight with the Stadium Super Trucks.
Oh yeah, always fun to watch these guys tear it up around these racetracks. And we'll only have one more race this season, but I'm sure we'll get to see them do it again very soon.
What is the final chapter going to be for the 4th season of the TNR DRP Stadium Super Truck Series? We will find out next week. But for Anthony McCurry, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for joining us, folks, here this evening. See you guys next Tuesday night for the season finale, as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.